This morning, a controversial new study is out commissioned by U.S. bishops on the sex abuse crisis in the Roman Catholic Church. Critics say it falls terribly short. CBS News correspondent Elaine Quijano has more for us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Erica. Well, in this report, researchers ruled out several factors in the sex abuse crisis. The study took 5 years and was conducted by researchers from New York's John Jay College of Criminal Justice. But victims are skeptical and say it's the role of bishops that should be examined.
For survivors of clergy sexual abuse, Wednesday's report marked another deep disappointment.
The bishops who lied to us about transferring priests, these are the same bishops who continue to lie to us.
The new study partially blames the clergy sex abuse crisis on the sexual revolution.
The increased frequency of abuse in the 1960s and 1970s is consistent with patterns of increased deviance in society during that time.
In addition to social influences, the report cites poor seminary training and isolation of priests. But for former New York City sex crimes prosecutor Linda Fairstein, blaming culture rings hollow.
These crimes occurred for decades, if not centuries, before there was a sexual revolution. That's a fact.
Some question the report since the church provided the information for analysis. The report also makes the controversial decision to label priests pedophiles only if they molested children aged 10 or younger. By their standards, just 5% of the priests fit the pedophile profile.
Most of the kids that clergy have access to alone are going to be in the 9, 10 to 15, 16-year-old category. It's illegal to engage in sexual contact with them. So it's a very artificial thing. It's semantics to just say, we're talking about under 10.
Researchers say homosexuality, celibacy, and an all-male priesthood did not play a role and said there was no way to identify potential abusers ahead of time. The report got mixed reaction from Catholics leaving church.
Kind of like asking the fox as he comes out to the hen house, how many chickens were in there before you went in, you know? So it's a step in the right direction, but obviously we also need independent surveys, reviews, and in-depth coverage.
Now, the report does not address the problem of bishops who covered up for abusive priests. Researchers do say that church leaders responded to the crisis, but focused on priests and not the victims. Erica?
Has the Vatican weighed in at all on this?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Just this week in a letter, the Vatican told bishops that within a year, they have to come up with guidelines on how to deal with abusive priests. But what's interesting about this is that the Vatican didn't spell out any punishments for bishops who don't comply. So, in effect, these were really just suggestions, not an actual mandatory order.
Do victims feel that there's any progress that's being made?
You know, not really, because they point to what's happened in the Philadelphia Archdiocese and the church there. A grand jury found a few months ago that there were some 37 priests still in active ministry who had credible accusations against them. They still basically had access to children. And so what the victims groups have said is, look, this is a perfect example of how, in fact, it took a grand jury with subpoena power to expose these cases. Bottom line, they say, the church cannot police itself.
Wow, amazing. Elaine Quijano, thanks.